We are live.
Yay! We made it through a weekend. Woo! Happy Monday. Before we get going, I am Old New Dude, and he is.
Richard York, Asher's trueborn son.
I hope you had a great and safe weekend. We appreciate those that watch these little videos of ours, our live streams. Lady Thistle, the Valencarp, shout out Valencarp. He had COVID. So hopefully he can catch us on time today. And hopefully you're feeling a whole lot better. So
Yeah.
we got Lady Thistle, we got Lizzie, we got Valencar. So we appreciate y'all very much, and best wishes to the Valencar. Before we get started, Friday night on book club, I believe I interrupted Lady Thistle a couple times because we had more people on than normal than I've ever seen, and so there's more voices. And when there's a good morning, when there's a pause, you kind of got intentionally, not intentionally, but you jump in on the pause to say something. And I think I cut Lady Dizzle off a couple times. And my wife says I do that all the time. And I didn't think about it. And it just, I'm sitting there yesterday going, did I cut her off? I hope I didn't cut her off. I might have cut her off. So then I went ahead and DM'd her and said, I'm sorry if I cut you off. It's a thing I'm working on. I do apologize. That being said, this is Cat 11, next to last chapter. And if you've seen any of these videos, you know that we start with the brains of the operation, Richard. He will say what he saw in the chapter, and then I will jump in with my stupid stuff every now and then. So take it away, Richard.
It's the penultimate chapter, where penultimate just means next to last. But anyway,
Yeah.
The King in the North. The King in the North chapter. It seemed 1,000 years ago that Catelyn Stark had carried her infant son out of Riverrun, crossing the Tumblestone in a small boat to begin their journey north to Winterfell. It was across the Tumblestone that they came home now, where the boy wore plate and mail in place of swaddling clothes. Robb sat in the bow with Greywind, his hand resting on his direwolf's head as the rowers pulled at their oars. Theon Greyjoy was with him. 1,000 years reminds me of Bran 4 with its hints at Bran's immortality. And Robb's hand resting on his direwolf's head could symbolize their mind link.
Also, the statues in the crypts of Winterfell.
Yeah, he's posing like you're right, he's posing like a King of the North. So it could just be foreshadowing of him as a King of the North. I like that too.
And also kind of foreshadowing he might kick the bucket.
Sure. Yeah, that's a good point. That he's mashing the tombs and therefore heading to an early grave. Catelyn gazed up at the bars and wondered how deep the rust went and how well the portcullis would stand up to a ram and whether it ought to be replaced. Thoughts like that were seldom far from her mind these days. War does change your whole view of the world.
Yeah, it's funny how the dangers make you see the dangers all around you.
Yeah. When Greywind bounded out, one of them dropped his pole and lurched back, stumbling and sitting down abruptly in the river. The others laughed, and the man got a sheepish look on his face. Theon Greyjoy vaulted over the side of the boat and lifted Catelyn by the waist, setting her on a dry step above him as water lapped around his boots. So the others laughed sounds like the prologue, right?
Yeah.
And Theon lifting Catelyn by the waist, maybe it could be some great statement on patriarchy and men ignoring the not waiting for women's permission to take care of them or something, or it could just be some cute little thing that George thought of in his mind. Who knows? But it feels a little bit like it could be a statement about the patriarchy and or maybe it's some abandoned seed of some sort of sexual tension between the two.
That's possible. Also, shouts out to a little bit of the strength Theon has at this time. For a slender youth of 19, picking Cat up by her waist is a feat
like nothing. Yeah.
Right. It just seems like that's something that Great John didn't he do that?
Yeah. It seems like something he certainly wouldn't have any problem doing it. And so the fact
yeah. So Theon doing it
nonchalantly.
Right. Yeah. He wouldn't be the one that you would think had that strength of body to be able to do that. So it was odd for me.
Yeah, now he's certainly lost all his strength.
Well, I mean, it might hint at a strength that is there that we do not know, and then that's the same strength that jumped off the freaking top of Winterfell wall. I mean,
but to Lizzie's point, it could be actually meant to show that much more of a decline in him, right? As he gets weaker, it makes it that much more dramatic if he was previously extremely strong.
Yeah, I agree. Yep, that's it.
Lord Hoster is bedridden, my lady, her father steward explained. When did that good man grow so old and gray? So that could almost be a statement about Hoster.
Yep.
He did not want. Sorry, I scrolled too far. He did not want his enemies to know that he was dying. With the realm so troubled, he feared that if the Lannisters suspected how frail he was, they might attack. Catelyn finished hard. It was your doing, yours, a voice whispered inside her. You did not take it upon yourself to seize the dwarf. So this voice seems to be wise.
Well, I mean, remember when you got the last chapter with John having the pounding head that
right.
I suggest is because it was a choice that he could have made, but it's not the choice that he would have made. So it was going against what he really wanted to do.
Your question is this her internal struggle with the motivation that's been planted in her to make that decision?
Right. Is this her mind going back and saying, basically, I knew better than to do that. Why did I do that? Type situation.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it certainly feels like an intervention, and it feels or some hallmark of intervention, and it makes more sense if it's sort of the other way around. It's sort of Catelyn realizing that she's been messed with. Yeah, kind of like that.
Yeah.
The keep was three-sided like Riverrun itself, and Lord Hoster's solar was triangular as well, with a stone balcony that jutted out to the east like the prow of some great sandstone ship. So this sort of reminds me of the Sand Ship, House Martell's fortress in Sunspear, that seems to be like some sort of cruise ship or modern military vessel converted into a post-apocalyptic castle. It's one of the most anachronistic things in the story is this concept that there's this gigantic ship turned into a castle in the story. That it's one of the things that always struck me as one of the biggest nod to the concept that this is a post-apocalyptic sci-fi thing, right? And so when I see something that's sort of hinting towards the Sand Ship, I thought it was worth calling out.
Where do you sit on that? Being a post-apocalyptic.
I think it's probably is, but it's just like a nod. I mean, it just is. It's a story about the Three Stooges and
Hercules,
Big Bird, and all sorts of these things, right? It's probably more. I think it's more of a nod towards the concept than it is some great pivotal interpretation of the things. I mean, he basically says the Earth all the time. The stars clearly match our stars, other than the pole star that's moved over to as it does over tens of thousands of years has moved over towards the eye of the ice dragon. But otherwise, it seems there's significant hints that this is taking place on Earth, and so like I said, I don't think it ruins the story somehow as LML seems to think. I think it's no more than the story is ruined by the fact that the Three Stooges are in it, or Elmo. Or Big Bird or whatever, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I like the story for the story, so I don't mind what came before.
Yeah, I don't think it changes it, right? And in fact, I've grown to actually like some of the framing of stories where somebody wakes up and is all dreams or whatever, because those stories are fiction and they're a good story and they're 100% fiction, and they don't stop being 100% fiction if they're portrayed as somebody's dream. In fact, if anything, that makes them more real, right? Because dreams are something that actually happens in the real world, and so I used to always get really upset by the idea of a framing story that implied the whole thing never happened. And I've completely flipped my head on that and gotten to the point where I think, no, if anything, that makes it just more real of a story because it's already 100% fiction. So
well, I mean, it's like The Walking Dead. There for a while when it was mainly the comics, the graphic novels coming out and everything. And I want to say it was right after they started the show. Maybe there was a theory going around that this is in Rick's head. He's in a coma, and the whole entire Walking Dead thing was a coma dream, basically, and
Okay.
that he would wake up in that hotel or the hospital room with like Lori, his wife, whatever, standing above him, and Shane, and all this. That I mean, I don't know if I finished. I didn't keep reading the comic books, and I didn't finish watching the show. Uh, it got a little out of hand for me
Oh
on
yeah,
the show.
yeah. I watched some of the beginning, and yeah, it
Yeah,
felt like it was going to get old fast, and yeah.
but it doesn't take away from everything that you saw. I
No,
mean,
it's a story, and whether it's a story that's framed as somebody's dream or a story that's framed as 100% false, being told to you by writers in Hollywood, it's still fiction. And is it a good story? Is the question, right?
right? What would say?
Look, it's not a coma dream. It's the three-eyed raven crossover Brand predicted.
You tell us
Yeah,
when you
right.
move.
Okay.
Well, I mean, this world
This is a
here,
zombie story.
it could be one of the thousand worlds, even though George says it's not. It could be this Earth in the future. It could be a
Right.
parallel Earth. I don't care. I like the
Right.
story.
No, right. It doesn't really make that much difference how you frame it. It's still a fictional story about something like Earth, and that's what it is, right?
Right.
Anyway,
Sorry.
no, we diverged, but that's fine. I think it's a good topic of conversation, and why it shouldn't really matter to people too much as to what the framing device of the story is.
Yeah.
I watched for you. Hoster watching for Cat is a nice reversal of Cat remembering how she always waited for him.
Yes.
Blackfish, he said. Has he wed yet? Taken some girl to wife? Even on his deathbed, Catelyn thought sadly. He has not wed, you know that, father, nor will he ever. I told him, commanded him. Marry, I was his lord. He knows. My right to make his match. A good match. So we think Hoster's right to force marriages, including on Ned and Lysa, drove the Blackfish away. Um, so,
I I
yeah.
agree that that is what drove the Blackfish away. But what do you put into the idea that the Blackfish is gay, and that is why he's never married? It doesn't matter. It doesn't change the
Yeah,
character one bit.
I don't think it matters much.
Yeah,
Sure. I mean, why not? But like I said, I don't know that it makes much difference.
yeah. Either way, he's the Blackfish and he's a badass. So
Yep. Yep. The Lannisters must have thought the others themselves were on them when that wolf of Robs got in among them. I saw him tear one man's arm from his shoulder, and their horses went mad at the scent of him. I couldn't tell you how many men were thrown. Theon, she interrupted. Where might I find my son? Lord Rob went to visit the godswood, my lady. It was what Ned would have done. He is his father's son as much as mine, I must remember. Oh gods, Ned. So does she need to remind herself because he really isn't? Lord Rob seems rather formal from Theon, perhaps showing his respect of his grown of Rob.
well, I mean, chances are it's because of the people he was talking to. He wanted to sound all official, like
Formal and official, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Or kind of acknowledging her pulling rank and interrupting and saying, "Yep, yep, you guys are the ones I respect," or something. Anyway,
right.
she found Rob beneath the green canopy of leaves, surrounded by tall redwoods and great old elms, kneeling before the heart tree, a slender weirwood with a face more sad than fierce. His longsword was before him, the point thrust in the earth, his gloved hands clasped around the hilt. Around him others knelt, Great John Umber, Ricard Karstark, Mage Mormont, Galbert Glover, and more. Even Titus Blackwood was among them, the great raven cloak fanned out behind him. These are the ones who keep the old gods, she realized. She asked herself what gods she kept these days and could not find an answer. So a weirwood with a sad face. So George is rather inconsistent with the whole burning of the ashram and the idea that there's no no weirwood with eyes in the south. Clearly, we
Well,
have a
I mean,
weirwood with eyes in the south here.
this is a young weirwood because it's so, I mean, thin. All the other
It's just
weirwoods,
yeah.
yeah. I mean, I see that it has grown in that it was probably chopped down to begin with and burnt at whatever, and then
Maybe.
I just
I don't
think
know.
I just think it's a
It,
newer weirwood, which would show
well,
that even
isn't that strange in itself that a castle that's been controlled by the animals ever since the burning of the weirwoods has been has decided to grow a new weirwood and carve a face in it.
well, I don't think they're the ones that carved his face in it.
Okay.
But I
Anyway,
mean, yeah,
it's pretty strange though. That's not something that relatively recently someone has planted a weirwood and carved a face here.
yeah,
Anyway, just found it interesting.
yep.
Over there, beneath that bower, she and Lysa had played at kissing with Peter. She'd not thought of that in years. How young they had all been. She no older than Sansa, Lysa younger than Arya, and Peter younger still, yet eager. The girls had traded in between them, serious and giggling by turns. It came back to her so vividly she could almost feel his sweaty fingers on her shoulders and taste the mint on his breath. There was always mint growing in Godswood, and Peter had liked to chew it. He'd been such a bold little boy, always in trouble. He tried to put his tongue in my mouth, Catelyn had confessed to her sister afterward when they were alone. He did with me too, Lysa had whispered, shy and breathless. I liked it. So is someone trying to remind Catelyn of these memories, the way they're so vivid?
I believe so.
Do you think the expression of a heart tree is in direct correlation in the happiness tragedy of the land surrounding it, happy or sad face? I don't know. I always leaned towards the idea that the Order of the Green Hand had, that whoever had actually somehow been utilizing the heart tree, that it took upon their features, but maybe it's the features of the Lord of the area or something. It's certainly symbolism that George is expressing of that region and those people.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I agree with that, but in my mind, that means that the faces aren't carved. The faces appear from
Right.
the essence of the human that was there before. So the sad face that's in this skinny weirwood is future Bran. I don't know. I mean, we've seen the solemn look at Winterfell that reminds you of Ned. You see the biggest weirwood whatever at
Fat
River
face at the
or
Manderleys.
Manderleys. You get, when did the weirwood look like Bran? I mean, it had Bran's face in it at Winterfell. So
Right.
I don't think that the faces were so much carved as that the last person to telecommunicate with it or whatever it is the face that appears on the tree.
What do you think of the idea that someone is trying to remind Catelyn of these memories, that maybe Bran was attempting to remind her, hey, this Peter Peter and Lysa are in cahoots here, maybe.
Maybe, yeah. It's definitely a possibility. Well, I mean, doesn't she think about Peter and Lysa in the Ned chapter, in the Catelyn chapter, when Ned is on top of her and rolls off? When she gets the note at the beginning of that chapter, she does think back to the childhood of
I think
Lysa
it
and
might have
Peter.
been mentions of Edmure and stuff in there too.
Yeah.
I seem to recall it being a little weird that seems that she seems to be thinking about her family at the time. Yes, given that she's in bed with Ned at the time.
Right.
Renly is not the king, Robb said. It was the first time her son had spoken. Like his father, he knew how to listen. You cannot mean to hold to Joffrey, my lord, Gobert Glover said. He put your father to death. That makes him evil, Robb replied. I do not know that it makes Renly king. I don't know. It sounds like the same mistake Ned made.
Like father, like son.
And we'll get into here we go with perhaps a better explanation of how this might have played out. Renly is crowned, said Mark Piper. Highgarden and Storm's End support his claim, and the Dornishmen will not be laggardly. Well, I don't know about that. If Winterfell and Riverrun add their strength to his, he will have 5 of the 7 great houses behind him. 6 if the Arryns bestir themselves. 6 against the Rock. My lords, within the year, we will have all their heads on pikes. The Queen and the Boy King, Lord Tywin, the Imp, the Kingslayer, Sir Kevin, all of them. That is what we shall win if we join with King Renly. What does Lord Stannis have against that? That we should cast it all aside. The right, said Robb stubbornly. Catelyn thought he sounded eerily like his father as he said it. So, yeah, I really do think it sounds like he's repeating Ned's mistake.
Yeah.
Again, the shouting began. Catelyn sat despairing. She'd come so close, she thought. They'd almost listened, almost. But the moment was gone. There would be no peace, no chance to heal, no safety. She looked at her son, watched him as he listened to the Lord's debate, frowning, troubled, yet wedded to his war. He pledged himself to marry a daughter of Walder Frey, but she saw his true bride plain before her now, the sword he had laid on the table. Catelyn was thinking of her girls, wondering if she would ever see them again, and the great John lurched to his feet. My lords, he shouted, his voice booming off the rafters. Here is what I say to these two kings, he spat. Friendly Baratheon is nothing to me, nor Stannis neither. Why should they rule over me and mine from some flowery seat in Highgarden or Dorne? What do they know of the Wall or the Wolf's Wood or the barrows of the first men? Even their gods are wrong. The others take the Lannisters too. I've had a bellyful of them. He reached back over his shoulder and drew his immense two-handed greatsword. Why shouldn't we rule ourselves again? It was the dragons we married, and the dragons are all dead. He pointed at Robb with the blade. There sits the only king I mean to bow my knee to, my lords, he thundered. The king in the north! And he knelt and laid his sword at his son's feet. I'll have peace on those terms, Lord Karstock said. They can keep their red castle and their iron chair as well. He eased his long sword from its scabbard. The king in the north, he said, kneeling beside the great John. Mage Mormont stood. The king of winter, she declared, and laid her spiked mace beside the swords. And the river lords were rising too, Blackwood and Bracken and Mallister, houses who had never been ruled from Winterfell. Yet Catelyn watched them rise and draw their blades, bending their knees and shouting the old word that had not been heard in the realm for more than 300 years, since Aegon the Dragon had come to make the Seven Kingdoms one. Yet now were heard again, ringing from the timbers of her father's hall. The king in the north! The king in the north! The king in the north! Choosing war feels glorious, but is usually a terrible mistake.
Yeah. Do you think that I love the Great John, don't get me wrong, but he went from drawing his sword at Winterfell, talking crap to Robb, losing a couple of fingers, and now he is his manager, his prep man, his hype man. Do we think that somebody might be moving Great John into doing some of this stuff?
Yeah, it's certainly possible. Makes sense. I mean, Lizzie says I would give almost anything to see the Great John burst out of captivity and into glory and battle and wins. That reading gave me goosebumps. The king in the north.
When they do that for Jon Snow in the TV show, it gives me goosebumps. But on the Great John, I personally think that his head is the skull that was sent to Dorne.
Really?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's not so many people in the kingdom that is as big as Sandor Clegane or Gregor. 8-foot
sure.
man. I would think the skull of the Great John, who's 7 foot. His son, Small John, is almost as high, but Great John's twice as wide. So this is an immensely
I'm with Lizzie. Lizzie's on the same page as I am. They've got all these dwarf skulls that are showing up, and the concept is that it's a dwarf skull. I mean, it's Well, I agree with Lizzie. Yeah. She's arguing that it's even the same box that the dwarf skull was presented in. And I mean, we know it can't be Gregor because it's been eaten clean by the maggots or whatever. They're specifically told will not touch Gregor's flesh, right? We're specifically told that they won't touch Gregor's flesh, and yet they somehow cleaned off this skull.
Right.
So it's clearly that it's not Gregor's head. And not just because Gregor's still walking around, but even if you believe that Gregor could be some sort of Frankenstein's monster assembled with a different head, it still wouldn't be his head.
I didn't even catch that dwarf skull. So I mean, that could be very, very well true.
Yeah, I'm on the same page as Lizzie on that.
Okay.
Well, all we've got left is the birth of dragons.
Yeah, but that's a note to end on too.
Absolutely.
You got anything else you want to talk about?
Yes, that's my laundry. It's singing. My laundry singing, Lizzie says.
Is that what that is?
Yes.
That's one way.
Anyway. Yeah, well, it's good timing for the laundry, I
guess. I still have a hard time reading Cat's chapters. I don't know why. I mean, I don't dislike the lady or anything like that. I mean, I understand some of the things that she does, and I
Well,
understand how she's manipulated into doing other stuff. Now, definitely
little
not
swagger
holding
dagger.
Swagger. Hey, happy Monday. I definitely don't hold some of the things that she gets manipulated into doing against her, against her character. I mean, I think that the manipulation in this story is widespread and everywhere and with everyone. That it's like the decision for John to ride south. I mean, like I said, appreciate it there, Swagger Dagger. Like I said,
You're welcome.
it was a decision. It's the left or right. And the 40% that John wanted to go south and avenge his father, and the 60%
Sure.
that wanted to keep his word. I mean, the manipulation in this story is it's like the somebody trying to remember or make Cat remember these things is to get a desired effect at a certain point in the story. They need them to make that left hand turn instead of a right hand turn. So they plant little seeds, these little memories, and these little hidden fingers, just to get a desired effect. I think that everyone we have a point of view character from is being manipulated, and then
Sure. And
not
people that we don't
everyone.
even have point of view of,
What's that?
and probably people that we don't have a point of view of.
Right. I think that the great John was manipulated at this point too. Um, but it's it's like the John chapter though. You get to see the double manipulation. You get to see two sides trying to manipulate one person, and it's hard to always know because in the rules of the game that Peter lets us know of, sometimes you have to make a move that goes against you just to throw people off. So when you're reading the story, you don't always know which one is manipulating. What does it say?
Yeah. Well, and the amount of coping out there that people have, like, oh well, she's probably just ignoring him. Yeah. That causes you to be in dreaded fear of going near somebody if they ignore you, right? Or
Yeah.
you
Well, it's like I said. I
it's
mean, that's the hidden fingers that have been going on for Robert's Rebellion, if not even further. If she was nice to him and was the mother of a motherless child, whatever, and raised him as one of her own, he'd have never been at the wall. He'd have been there with Rob. He'd have gone south with Rob. He'd die with Rob. So the main reason for her to be a total bitch to him growing up was for him to go to the wall. That was where he needed. That is where the person that manipulated that situation wanted him to be. And then the last chapter,
but don't take away the character's agency entirely. Like you said, that people can't go completely against their character, right?
right.
So
I
I mean,
mean,
let's not let Cat completely off the hook there.
no. It is a direction that she, but even without any pushing, without a doubt. Rest in peace, Rob Snow. Uh, no, it's the left or right. I mean, she could either love the child or hate the child, and she could make up. She'd have gone exactly the same way all by herself, but the guarantee to make sure she did go that way, the manipulation is taking place. I
What's
mean,
um, um like Alicia Patience says, this is it's clearly supposed to be like this is supposed to be the story of Snow White, essentially, right? That John is the princess who's run off to get away from, right, and even some of the characters are supposed to be remind you of the dwarves in a way, I think, with Dolores Ed and um, you know, it's maybe Gren is sort of supposed to be dopey.
yeah, and Sandra Glenn's the huntsman. Uh, I loved her
Anyway,
videos. Her fairy tale take on the Game of Thrones is freaking awesome. Uh,
yeah,
but
I liked her Little Mermaid version of Cat. I mean, the real spooky Little Mermaid with the, the version, the original, not the Disney-fied version.
Yeah.
Um,
I've never read
and
the original.
well, I haven't either, but she explains it, right, and why it's different and so forth. And she does a pretty good job explaining the rather dramatic differences. But there's also a tale that I found on yeah,
Shout out to
definitely.
Alyssa.
Yeah, there's also another tale I found. I hope I can find it. But there's a tale of a they're videos actually. Yeah, Lizzie, we'll have to track down we'll
Alicia
send you some.
Patience.
Yeah, yeah. Her YouTube channel I think is just Alicia Patience, isn't it?
Yeah, I believe so. Unless she's changed it.
No, I don't. I think their videos are probably still up there.
Yeah.
There was another folk story I found where there's like a trout that gets it's condemned. There's like an undead trout that's like condemned to look um, for her lover's bones. Um, that really sounds a lot like
It's still Alyssa Patience.
you got it.
Yeah, Alyssa Patience.
I'm trying to remember the details of this. Um, let's see if I can find it.
We need elevator music when you look at something up.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, it's probably not good to have that air, but I want to say it's the white trout. Might be the Irish fairy tale that I'm thinking of. Anyway, there's a tale where specifically about how she's afraid she's going to miss her. She's afraid she's going to miss her like her lover's bones passing by or something. Yeah, for fear her lover passed while she was away. Anyway, yeah, it's called the White Trout. There's another story that could be also incorporated into in the Catalan story.
All right, it's gonna be sad doing that last chapter.
Yeah, afterwards we're gonna go straight into. You want to go straight into Clash, or do you want to go back and pick up the first handful of chapters? I know you'd already done them, and my take was let's just go on.
Yeah, I'd say go on.
Okay, cool.
Which I mean, we're
and as we've run into things that reference them, we've kind of pulled those up and talked about those too. So right, so we kind of I think we have plenty of overlap.
I didn't do too many videos without you, did I?
I joined on Cat 2, which is like chapter 6, the 7th one if you count the prologue.
Yeah, that was when the videos started going from 5 minutes long to
30 minutes to an hour.
Yeah, if we've gone a while without talking to each other, they generally hit that hour mark. So, yeah, I know taking a couple of weeks off away from A Song of Ice and Fire and everything, but the day I picked back up the book was like, man, I can't wait to talk to Richard. I can't wait to get back on because I didn't realize how much I missed it until I looked back at it, and then I'm like, man, I was empty in those 2 weeks without it. I mean, I'm watching all kinds of stupid stuff on Netflix and just trying to have as much fun as I can. And the second I picked back up and started reading John, I'm like, why did I take a 2 week break? I mean, I missed it.
Yeah.
But I'm happy now. We got one chapter to go, and then I mean, on the book clubs on Friday night, we're about halfway through, maybe a little bit further on A Clash of Kings. So I did not get to do the book club first half of the book of A Clash of Kings, which I mean they go pretty good. I mean, Friday night when I got from 8 o'clock to midnight, we didn't even finish 2 chapters. So that the discussion on it gets really good. And like I said, like I told you, I had to apologize to Lady Thistle because I interrupted. There was I want to say like 7, maybe 8 people on, and normally there's like 6 or less. So there was a lot of conversation going on, and then you hear that pause, and then you kind of jump in out of habit.
There's about 3/4 of the way through a reread of Game of Thrones and absolutely loving it.
Yeah,
another series where he's been able to read 100 pages a day.
I've said it before, and I'll say it again. The reread with you is way better than the reread by myself. Not having
Oh
to.
yeah, going through it's an interesting exercise going through and making notes and figuring out what you want to highlight
Right.
and how it
Well,
ties into the story and so forth. It's definitely a different exercise.
yeah, I mean, I definitely see a lot more than I did before.
Yeah.
Well, like I told you,
Well,
I mean,
and it helps that we've had some of these some of these insights from people like Preston and so forth, right?
yeah,
I mean, obviously we didn't get to these ideas by ourselves, or even the fact that it was worth looking at these ideas by ourselves, right? And um, so yeah, it's definitely helps to have
well, that's like
some
the
expertise.
input of the few people that watch it. It's like the northern birds being the actual the northerners talking to each other with the bird
That makes
whistle.
sense.
I
Perfectly
mean,
logical.
Lady Thistle was like, oh, that's like I mean, it's like, damn, that was a mic drop right there. It didn't even dawn on me.
My books are essentially falling apart at this point.
Yeah, I got all kinds of color of little note paper pad marking the cat chapters, and I mean certain pages that I don't want to lose.
I've
But
got
yeah, definitely.
I mostly read on the ebooks. I've got my father's old probably book club edition. They might be first editions, but probably book club editions.
Yeah. Well, I have a set that's never been opened.
Lizzie, did you notice this shirt? This shirt, triplet Targaryen.
Only because I forgot to put the S on there. You didn't
That's
mention
right.
it all in this chapter, did you?
No, I don't think I did.
0. Wow, I didn't even catch that.
All right. Well, I'm sure this. We could have brought up some things, I suppose.
You gotta give it a break every now and then. Oh, there's one. Yeah. All right.
Well, only because Lizzie prompted us.
Yeah. We'll try to get. Well, the next chapter is the last chapter. I mean, try to get as many in there as you can.
No, there's plenty of. It's hard to bring up Danny and not think about clues that she's Rhaegar's.
Without a doubt. But are you good for Wednesday?
I think so.
All right. Well, we'll do Wednesday, the last chapter of Game of Thrones. Danny was here.
We're gonna have to try and wrap it up early and start working on the next one, because the prologue of Clash is either the longest or barely second longest, depending on how you measure it.
Well, if we do Danny on Wednesday, then the prologue would be Friday.
Right. That's my point.
We
may want to try and work on Danny right away to wrap it up, because we need extra time to get to the prologue.
Well, the prologue might be a 2-episode. You never. I mean, if we got to cut it in half, I mean, we cut it in half. I mean,
I'll see how it goes.
Yeah, because normally he sticks a lot. He sticks a lot in the prologues. So there's going to be a lot to point out. But all right, Wednesday, Danny 10. And thank y'all for everybody. Again, Lady Thistle, I apologize for interrupting you on the book club. It's something that I'm working on. I do it to Richard every now and then. I try to catch myself.
I think I do worse at interrupting you, I'm afraid.
That's okay. I mean, I need you to express what I'm thinking, because my mouth can't do it. So I appreciate it. But we'll see everybody on Wednesday. The Valcar, please. I hope you're getting feeling better. Swagger, thanks for jumping on today. Lizzie, as always, we appreciate you here. Lady Thistle out there, again, I say I'm sorry. And we'll see all y'all Wednesday. Stay safe and goodbye.
Have a good one.